Our guest today here on Music Business Week is the one and only Matt Gayden. Thank you so much for being on the show here at Talkopolis. It's very exciting. So I want to talk to you about your history in Nashville and also how things have changed. But take me back to the beginning. How did you end up being a musician in Nashville?
Well, first of all, I was just born a few miles down the street.
No, that helps.
I grew up, rather. And I'm one of the very rare Nashville natives. You know?
That's right.
And in fact, we're kind of like an endangered species here.
It's true. More and more so.
Oh, yeah. And I've had people walk away when I told them I was from Nashville.
Really?
Because you're not from Texas, Oklahoma, you know, that kind of thing. So I've had to deal with that for a long time. But anyway, so I rode in the hookup with Hank Williams Sr.'s stepdaughter, Lucretia. So I would see him, you know, occasionally, like on a weekly basis. He'd pick us up after school. And it was a fascinating experience for that, because of course at that time we didn't know he was a legend, you know.
Yeah.
We thought he was just the guy that lived down the street that played guitar and was on TV every night. You know.
Wow.
So it was real interesting, and I actually held Hank Jr. in my lap when he was in diapers.
Wow.
So that was an experience.
I bet he was a big baby, even then.
It's still a big baby.
Yeah. And did you always know you were going to be? I mean, you were surrounded by music, but from that early age, did you know you wanted to be a musician?
Yeah, I did. I used to tinker on the piano a little bit. In fact, my biggest hit song, "Everlasting Love," I wrote the counter melody in the background when I was 5 years old.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How does that go?
Dun, 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 dun. That goes on in the background. While the other melodies, open up your eyes, then you realize, and that's up front, and that's in the background.
Did the melody stay with you your entire life when you went to write the song, or did it just bubble up when you sat down that day?
What happened was we were on the session one night, and we cut that song as an afterthought. It was a B-side. And that happened a lot, as you probably know. B-sides and throwaway tunes end up being the song. But anyway, it didn't sound like it was complete to me, you know. So I went over and told everybody, said, "Here's a melody I want to include in here, the horns and this stuff like that." And so we integrated it into it. So it just was an afterthought. Yeah.
Tell me about the statistics on that song, because your wife was telling me something very unusual in particular about the song "Everlasting Love."
Well, it's been a hit in the last 5 generations, the only song it's ever done. Up until the last 4 generations, The Way You Do the Things You Do was the only other song that had done that. And now Everlasting Love is the only song that ever...
So a different person has cut it.
And it's been a hit.
For 50 years.
50 years.
It's been a hit.
Yeah, and it's been on the charts 13 times in the U.S. or in Europe.
Wow.
And most of the times in the top 10.
Do you own the publishing on the song?
But I will next year.
Congratulations. Just got to keep getting it cut for the next 5 years, and then all that money will come back to you.
Yeah, next year, I'm really excited about that.
Is that some kind of statute of 50 years when you?
Well, next year I can negotiate the publishing, whether I want to keep it or sell it.
Right.
So, and I think it's after 57 years, something like that.
So 50 years ago, when people started writing music, almost always you would go and bring it to a publisher, and they would take all the mechanical rights. They would basically own the song, right? And Willie Nelson talks about that with his song "Crazy," and Patsy Cline, and he sold it for milk money, and doesn't regret it. But things have changed in terms of the deals that are being made these days.
Yeah, a lot of people are a little bit more careful about that. You know who started that? Felice and Boudleaux Bryant started the getting your publishing. They ran into a lawyer, an attorney in New York City, who said, "Get your publishing back after 10 years," which they did. They were the first ones to do that.
It's kind of set a precedent.
Yeah, and it hipped us all to the fact that we were all being taken, you know.
It's interesting, but I don't know if you've noticed this, you're working with some young acts now, but there's been a little bit of a reversion, I feel like, with this advent of the 360 deals.
Yeah.
About in the 90s, in the mid-90s, when I was getting my first record deals, they were more generous. I've noticed, and I was wondering if you have too, with younger artists now, the companies are actually starting to want more.
They want everything.
They want everything.
Merchandising, all that stuff, you know. And which is sad, you know, and the whole music business has got to reinvent itself for the younger artists coming up, because what they are having to go through is unforgivable almost.
Well, they can't survive.
Yeah, they can't. Yeah, and I've seen so many out on the road with, you know, almost like sleeping on floors in different towns, and you know, that kind of thing. Eating Vienna sausages.
I know. I mean, I'm sure that musicians from the 60s and 70s and 80s would say, "Well, I slept on the floor and ate Vienna sausages," and but maybe not for, you know. I don't see. It's almost like you have to have a plan B these days.
Yeah.
You know, you have
plan
to have
B,
some
C,
kind of
and
fallback.
D.
Yeah.
Plan A and a plan Z.
All the way through. So what advice do you give with all of this amazing experience that you've had in the business as an artist and as a writer with your daughter or with Sweetwater Rose or anybody you're working with? What advice do you give them?
I've got a son also who's a musician, and when he was going through college getting his second degree, I really applauded that because I knew that was going to be his thing. Now he's starting to play music because he's had 20 years of the business world, and he's saved up a whole lot of money, and now he can and play his music. And my daughter Oshina also the same thing with her. She's got a job and several degrees. I would say get some kind of degree, have a plan A, B, and C.
And also educate yourself about every side of the business, because I have a 27-year-old godson who's about to have an album come out, and he takes none of my advice, which maybe he's smart to do, but I feel like there's things that he's not paying attention to. He's letting other people do the paperwork, and we all do this, but in this day and age, I feel like you need to know about viral marketing, and you need to know about merchandising, and you need to know about touring and every single thing, because if you delegate, you'll get taken.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, somebody asked me once, I was a guest speaker at one of the colleges in the music department, and they asked me what I did, and what I did was I got involved with all these different cliques of musicians, songwriters, and music people, like a 360 kind of thing. And I just got involved everywhere I could. And somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have success here, and it's going to cause a domino effect over here, and that kind of feeds the whole cycle, you know. So I had publishing going. I was a session player. I did everything I could get involved with, and that helps a lot. It takes a lot of pressure off of, you know, your one thing. So you're a songwriter, and the whole pressure's on being a successful songwriter. How about singing on it? If you can sing on somebody's records. Do some bartering here and there, and you know, whatever you have.
I like what you're saying, because what you're saying is I might put all this effort into the publishing side and help this publishing company, and if they're successful, maybe that love will spread back down to me, and they'll help me out.
That's right. Yeah. So I hung out with a little bit with Jerry Reed, Roger Miller, and Joe South. And the list is, you know, quite extensive of musicians that I hung out with. Yeah. And we all kind of happened at the same time. It was like this huge explosion of energy out of Nashville. Mine was more as a songwriter.
Right.
But theirs, a lot of them were artists and stuff, you know. But, you know, the domino effect can happen at any time, and don't lose that kind of, that excitement, because all of them had the excitement, you know. They had the eye of the tiger, you know. They knew something was going to happen. I was around Don Slitz when he first came to town, and he opened for me one night at a club here in town, and he was real cocky, and I that was okay with me, you know. But he told me, he said one night, he said, "I'm not going to pay my dues like you did. I want it now."
Yeah.
Well, I went in to demo a song one afternoon in the studio. He'd just left demoing his song, and I walked in and looked on the control board, and the lyrics to The Gambler were on the control board. He knew, you know, intuitively that something was going to happen. He was so into it, you know. And so it was, I think 3 or 4 weeks later, Johnny Cash may have cut it, then Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers is the version I remember. That's a great song.
Yeah,
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and Jack White was talking a conversation he had with Loretta Lynn, and he said, "What's your favorite song that you ever wrote?" And she said, "Coal Miner's Daughter." Yeah. And he thought that was great. Like, maybe a lot of people would be sick of singing that song, or that wouldn't be their favorite song because it was their biggest hit. Yeah. But that kind of opened up her whole world, and it was her favorite song. Yeah. Is that the way you feel about Everlasting Love, or do you have another favorite song? Or?
You know, I've written a lot of songs that I love, but some of them are kind of esoteric. You know, my favorite ones are kind of spiritual, esoteric kind of things, because I've minored in religion in college, and I really was into the American Indian philosophy.
Right.
And that kind of has always been a part of my writing. And I have favorites that probably other people would say, oh, yeah, I can't identify with that.
Right.
Yeah. It's from the inside out instead of the outside, or the, focusing on what's going on in here.
So Everlasting Love would probably not be your favorite song?
Everlasting Love in terms of blue collar song.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good. Definitely. It was a blue collar song. Of course, it doesn't sound. It's a kind of a Motown song, and in fact, when we were, the album that we were recording that for was kind of a Motown type, Nashville Motown kind of thing, and so and which I love, and I'm getting ready to produce an album on a group here in Nashville, from Nashville, older guys. They're a doo-wop group. Now I had a hit on them years ago, and for some reason the label went under. And I didn't get to finish the album with them.
Yeah.
And I put the songs on the shelf, and they wanted me to get all the songs off the shelf and redo it, restructure them. And so we're going to have some of the old Motown musicians come in. And
what's the name of this duo?
It's called, that's not a duo, there's 4 guys, and they're called the Valentines.
Ooh, I like that.
And they're like a Philly Motown type singing, Four Tops / what's that group out of Philadelphia? And phonics, what is...
Stereophonics?
No, well, I can't, one of those phonics things.
Well, get a Google in here.
Yeah.
We'll Google it up.
I can't think. Anyway, they had La 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 La. Remember that song? La 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 La. That kind of real slick kind of Motown.
That'll be fun to produce.
Oh, I'm just excited. So I wrote all these songs for them, and we're going to do them. It's going to be... It'll sound like old Motown stuff.
Right. Well, tell us about the history of Nashville a little bit in terms of the R&B being here before country music was here.
Yeah, I used to, at about 15 or 16, I would hang out on the streets. There's a place called Roussan's. You know where Roussan's is? Down in the Gulch. You know where the Gulch is? There's a little corner down there. Years ago, I used to hang out with this group called Cameos. And they were a doo-wop group. And I would hang out and play guitar with them. And then they would take me up to the community center up the street, Bethlehem Community Center, and there would be like 200 blacks in one room and one white. And I would play with them, and I really got started that way because there was so much feeling in the room. I said, whatever this is, I want more of it. So,
absolutely. Soul.
So that's my first introduction into it. But Jimi Hendrix was here during it a little later, and he and Billy Cox, and we would play clubs opposite each other and see each other fairly often, and then he would be around town in the music stores and stuff like that. But he learned a lot of his licks here in Nashville. Yeah. From the
so there was a whole R&B
scene
here.
Very, very
starting from forever.
Very rich.
But then country music, because of that radio station that was here, and
WSM.
Yes, that is really kind of what put Nashville, Tennessee on the map as country music city, USA.
Yeah.
But there is this deep, rich, tradition of rhythm and blues.
Yeah, because we have 3 universities here, black universities.
That's right. Yeah.
They are, maybe they're integrated now, but back then that's what it was. One time I had the joy to, I was playing as a backup musician on the show. I'm trying to think of Hee Haw. Yeah. And they had Ray Charles was the guest artist, and so everybody on the set went to lunch. And I stayed because I was a vegetarian at the time and brought my own lunch, and he stayed, and they brought him in some Kentucky Fried Chicken. So he and I sat there for an hour and a half talking, and by ourselves. Nice. He'd never heard a white slide player before. I was the first guy he'd ever heard before, so he was fascinated by that. But the thing is, a lot of these musicians out of his bands came from TSU, which is here in town. Yeah. And so Nashville has been real kind of under the radar R&B town. Yes, and now it's seriously on the radar. You must have noticed in the last 5 years how the tone of this place has changed. It's gotten hip. Oh yeah, it's weird. And the East Nashville thing that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. It's some are saying it's the next Haight-Ashbury kind of thing. I was definitely thinking maybe Portland, Oregon, kind of. I don't know about Haight-Ashbury because there seems to be like not the drugs, but I mean maybe some. I don't know. Just the healthy food. Without the drugs. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not speaking for those guys.
But there is diversity here, and there's a diversity of music. There's a hip hop scene, a rap scene. You've got rock stars moving here. You know, the Black Keys and Jack White and Kesha, even the pop music and Paramore.
And people feel so free to do that. You know.
But you can. What I love about Nashville is that you can still be like a working drummer and raise your family here. I don't know how much longer that will be the case, but you can be a working musician in Nashville.
Oh, you can, and that's why there's so many here.
That's right. Yeah. But it's getting. I almost think it's getting a little bit too hip. I was reading GQ and looking, and I knew half the people in the spread, and I knew every restaurant in the spread, and it was all on Nashville, and I was like, this place looks incredible. Where is this place? I want to move to this place. Oh, wait, I know her. So there is a, and it's great, it's great, but I don't know if it's going to be great for business. Hopefully it will be, but I don't know. I feel sometimes, I don't know if you share this, I feel like Nashville can be a really tough place to live as a working musician sometimes. It's hard to get people to come to your gigs.
There's too much music here.
It's too much music here. And the rest of the world is being starved. We need to take a little chunk of Nashville and spread it around the rest of the country because it's so concentrated, right?
Yeah, it is. You know, you can open up the Scene magazine on the week before the weekend and you go, my God, how do all these people make a living? You know, how they get their uncles and aunts and cousins and come in from some other town, you know, because I mean, look at this, you know. So I think that's a problem.
It is a problem. Stacey Collins, who was on the show earlier, was so funny. She has a saying, if you want to have a nice, quiet evening in Nashville, book a gig. Isn't that sad?
Oh, God. That's so funny.
But it's kind of true.
Yeah, and you know, that may change if more attention is brought to Nashville, or it may be Nashville will be the latest in the past.
I think we need to work more towards making it a music tourist destination. We can all set up in our backyards, and they can get those little Silverline vans and just drive around. From people can come here, and you can. It's all here. But really, I mean, I think Memphis has done such a good job, you know, in some ways of Beale Street and promoting that. And I think we need to keep promoting Nashville as a music destination place. Come and, you know, there's more than CMA week. But make it a destination where you come and get hip to all this music that's available here. So we don't have to get on a bus and drive around.
The thing that bothers me a little bit about Nashville, the club scene, is the sound systems are some of the worst I've ever heard, and yet it's one of the most applauded music cities in the world, you know.
And why do you think that is?
I don't know. You go to LA and you walk in and it's just like, oh my God, you know.
That's funny. I haven't really thought about that.
You come back to Nashville and, oh no, you know, not again.
Usually I'm just setting it up myself or something, so
that's the weirdest thing about here. But you know, you've experienced that, how bad systems can be. But anyway, Nashville has a great, rich history of not just music. You know, there's so much here going on now that makes it a great destination. I think it's number 15 in the nation now, and 5th in business or something like that. To start a new business. But I don't know the figures. But anyway.
Well, thanks for joining us. Are you going to sing us a song?
Well, you know, let me see.
Let's see if we can get Stacey back in here, and maybe we'll get a song. That would be amazing. Matt Gayden's been our guest today here on Talkopolis. Thank you so much for coming in, and you'll come back and spend more time with us, because there's so much more. I know we can all learn from you and your rich history here in Nashville.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.